Welcome into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, simulcast live on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. We're finishing off the card here, guys, for the bowl season. We got Friday, January 1st, and Saturday, January 2nd cards here. 4 games on each, 8 games total, with our closer at Teddy_covers on Twitter. Teddy Covers, welcome in, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited about the end of 2020, although everyone's like, I'm so looking forward to this year being over and assuming that 2021 is going to be better.
Yeah.
Let's hope we get what we wish for in that regard. Not to sound too negative or anything, but, there were things to like about 2020. From a sports betting standpoint, this is a pretty good year, man. I've had a good NFL season and running good in college football, running good in NBA. I can't complain about my livelihood at all. All that being said, let's hope 2021 is a little bit better for everybody than 2020 was, even though, as we all know in sports betting, it's not a lock. It's no sure thing.
It's no sure thing whatsoever, but hopefully we can get you on more right sides than wrong sides here, guys. Starting off with the Friday, January 1st, New Year's Day, first game of 2021. 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time on ESPN. Top 10 matchup here, Teddy. We got the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Georgia Bulldogs, 50.5 being the total, telling us two good defenses here in college football. -7, that's the Georgia Bulldogs as the favorite.
So we have 8 games to discuss, and I'm in play on 3 of them, and I'm not going to give up my plays on the show. So I'm going to give you the case for Cincinnati and the case for Georgia in this ball game. I am in play on this contest. You can get all the plays. I got a value price package up. You can get all 3 of them, I think, for less than $40. So you can take advantage of that if you like right now at Wager Talk or sportsmemo.com. Who should I start with? I'm going to ask you on the 3 games I'm in action who I should start with, so I don't give it away. You want me to start with Cincy or you want me to start with Georgia?
I want you to start with Georgia.
All right, sure. The case for Georgia is pretty clear, all right? This was a team that came on like a freight train down the stretch. All right. And once they made the move and JT Daniels installed at QB, all of a sudden the Georgia offense that was spotty early in the season really got to work, and they moved the football up and down the field over the back half of the campaign. We haven't seen Cincinnati, the only real step-up game they've played over the last years, and they went to Columbus. And took on Ohio State. They lost that game 42-0. They were non-competitive in that contest. So certainly you can make a case from a pure skill standpoint that Georgia is the better of these two teams by a pretty wide margin. Of course, the Cincinnati team that wanted to be playing in a different bowl game than this one and was disrespected as a result. And, of course, it's a Bearcats team that, while we know their defense was really good by AAC standards, does that translate to SEC talent level? Well, it's a question. The case for Cincinnati is how interested is in Georgia. Certainly how interested Georgia. They're playing in their home state. They're not in the bowl game they wanted to be in. They've had, 7 different guys opt out. And the guys who are opting out are all NFL talent. And it's not like Georgia doesn't have NFL talent in the wings behind them, but you're losing key components on both sides of the football for Georgia in this contest. Significant losses. Their leading sack producer, their top 2 pass rushers, their key offensive linemen. There's significant losses for Georgia. And, of course, it's a Cincinnati team that is, from a motivational standpoint, sometimes we worry about sometimes we worry about a team that gets snubbed not necessarily bringing their A game. I mean, since he's been snubbed in some sense, in that they didn't, they finished the season undefeated and didn't get a chance to play for the big prize. So we wonder here if the Bearcats are going to be able to manage their emotions and move the football against Georgia's defense. I mean, Cincy, the strength of that Cincy team was on the defense side of the football. Georgia's defense is pretty solid, and Ritter as a QB. I mean, we saw it against Tulsa in a game that was played in nasty conditions, but it's not like this Bearcats offense is loaded with big-time playmakers. If Cincy's going to hang tough, it's going to have to be a relatively low-scoring affair.
And Teddy, how much does it scare you? You brought up, the SEC talent versus AAC talent. Where would you rank the AAC in terms of, how strong they are talent wise as a conference? I mean, would you say that they, are the best group of five and not better than any of the Power Five? Or do you think they are challenging some of the Power Five teams?
I mean, if you go top to bottom in the conference, you're not going to get anywhere near the Power Five. If you just look at the elite teams from the AAC, maybe you make an argument that they could have some of them could have hung in the Pac-12 this year. But when we're talking about bowl games, the fundamental concern is not always talent; it's talent combined with motivation.
Sure.
And when those two are in sync with one another, you can find some pretty good plays during bowl season.
Teddy, next game up, we got 329-330, 1 o'clock Eastern kick here. The Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida on ABC. Auburn, the Auburn Tigers versus the Northwestern Wildcats here. We're seeing Northwestern -3 in the hook point favorites here, 43.5 being the total in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten hasn't exactly been, and again, you don't want to put too much this year, more as much as any year ever. I'm not putting a whole lot of faith in some of the long-term trends, but the long-term trends are you don't want to lay points with Big Ten teams against SEC teams. 4-11 straight up, 4-11 ATS since 2015. That's Big Ten against the SEC. The last three SEC teams that were bowl underdogs versus Big Ten opponents all won outright. Kentucky over Penn State, Florida against Michigan, South Carolina against Michigan. Admittedly, two of the three came against my Wolverines. Certainly, it's a Northwestern team. What are they? They're the Fighting Reese Davises on offense. Let's be real about Northwestern. They took that nickname and ran with it because it's funny and because it's true. It's not a team that's loaded with offensive playmakers by any stretch of the imagination. And Northwestern 7-1 to the under in their 8 games this season. The defense, dynamite. The offense, pretty spotty. Auburn games, 8-2 to the under this season. So between these two teams, we're talking about a 15-3 mark to the under. Okay, we're not talking about two elite offenses by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Auburn scored, they get 6 against Georgia, 13 against Alabama, 20 against Texas A&M. That's their 3 toughest defensive opponents. And Northwestern's defense, according to the advanced metrics, are right there with those teams. So it's certainly not an Auburn offense that was able to move the ball against the better defenses. And I'll tell you what, if you take away the non-offensive scores, Northwestern's only allowed 1.2 points per possession this year. That's tied for the second in FBS. Look, we just saw them shut down Ohio State for most of the game. Ohio State got to 22 only because they got a couple of fourth quarter TDs in that contest. It's a good defense. And even though they give up 29 to Michigan State, well, let's see. The Spartans got a fumble return as time expired, and their scoring drives consisted of 6, 27, and 19 yards. It was all Northwestern mistakes, which is a possibility here. Obviously, it's not an elite level offense, not by any stretch of the imagination. Now, we've got Kevin Steele coaching in a bowl game as head coach. Last time he was the head coach, I believe, was at Baylor back in 2001. So it's been a while. He's filling in not filling in. He's the interim head coach with Gus Malzahn having been shown the door. And certainly, again, if you're going to grade out the talent, you're grade out this defense, these two defense. It's not like Auburn has a talent differential in Northwestern. What they may have is a coaching differential and a motivational differential and a Wildcats team that has been nothing but feisty all year. But if I'm playing this game, I'm going to look at the under before I look at either side. I'm not convinced either offense is going to move the football up and down the field.
Teddy, I'm worried about this situation for Auburn, just, motivation, kind of the coach being fired, the assistant coaches shuffling around. Just last year, Auburn was pinned up against a Big Ten opponent, Minnesota. Now, they were the favorite, and we're not the better team on that day. That was just a year ago in the Outback Bowl, but similar type of situation here. I like Northwestern here, Teddy. I would look to lay it here if you could find a 3, which I can't, but -3.5 even. I like the Big Ten side here, Teddy.
I certainly wouldn't talk you out of it. And it's a Northwestern team that made me money this year. It's a Northwestern team that I've been impressed with on multiple occasions this season. But you're laying now more than a field goal with Northwestern in a game where they'll be thrilled to win by anything, and where margins may well be tough to come by in a matchup of two elite defenses. So I lean under before I lean side in this one.
All right, guys, next two games up, we got the playoff games, Notre Dame and Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, before we get on to the Saturday, January 2nd card. Teddy, at the intro, you mentioned 2020 being a great year for you. Of course, in the NFL, it's been a great year for you going back, 5-6 years now. But do you think there's any reasons why 2020 as a sports betting year has been really good for you? Or just, happen chance this year went well? Or there are structural reasons in the shortened seasons, the change going on in all kinds of sports leagues that you think actually helped you as a sports bettor?
I think there are two things that definitely helped me. One is that I was unemployed for close to 5 months, which since I started doing this, I never had a break like that. I never took, and I didn't accomplish anything. I sat around depressed like everybody else throughout the spring and early summer. But what happened was when sports started up again, I was, the moral equivalent of tanned, rested, and ready, and really hungry. And I don't know that I've ever worked harder than this football season. I really don't. So the fact that I had a little time to recharge the batteries over the spring months definitely made a difference for me this football season. The other factor that comes into play is look, I'm not a trend and angle guy. I'm not I'm much more of a let's watch the games, let's examine current form, let's find the weaknesses in the betting markets. What are they, in terms of my handicapping strategy? I'm always looking for undervalued and overvalued commodities. And I'm going to bet on the undervalued teams and bet against the overvalued teams. And for whatever reason, this year, that particular methodology has worked fairly well across sports. We're able to isolate teams to bet on or bet against and ride them and get not just one win, but several wins in these situations. It's fit into my handicapping style. But you know how it is, Drew. I'm 0-0 today. I'm 0-0 tomorrow. Everything that you've done is all rear view mirror. And that's the way it has to be in this business. You have to be hungry and focused. And if you're not, the results will tell you that you're not.
Yeah, Teddy, I agree with everything you said, and I'm glad you went down that route because trends and angles are great. I mean, they get a lot of pub and people, will run with them, and they should. And you should use them to your advantage as a sports bettor. But in my opinion, matchup handicapping, like you talked about, where you can find an edge on the field, in my opinion, is the best way to win in this business. And finding change and going from that point forward, it's something that, talking about like the old owners of Sportsmo, Aaron Renning and Andrew Lang, like drilled into my head when I was getting into this business. And I think it's true. And in 2020, it's been my best year as a sports bettor. And I think it goes back to so much change was happening. I think it made it actually more difficult on the odds makers, and we could spend our time as sports bettors finding that change. And therefore, the winning percentage is higher for the sports bettors that do this and actually put in the real work, behind the scenes, finding this information. That's why I think 2020 was the best for the sports bettors. I don't know. Do you have anything to kind of comment on that?
I certainly wouldn't. I don't disagree with that at all. But again, and I mean, I've had better overall years than 2020 since I've been in Las Vegas. I've been here 23 years. I've had some real good years. I've had some great seasons. But what I've been most proud of this year is I've been doing it across sports. When you do it in the NFL and you're winning in college football and you're winning in the NBA, the college hoops hasn't gotten off to a great start. And we've hit the brake pedal on that a little bit. We'll work on, we'll work college hoops in earnest once bowl season ends next week. But the fact that I've been able to achieve to win consistently across sports over extended periods, to me speaks about it's good. It's a good thing. It's good for the clients. But you know how this is, Drew. I could lose everything today, and then tomorrow I'm in the middle of a cold run. I mean, the minute you take your foot off the gas pedal, the minute you stop doing what's been working and say, "Oh yeah, I'm resting on my laurels," that's when things can change like that. So I've been focused on keeping my nose to the grindstone, and hopefully we'll be able to continue consistent success. I mean, the goal is consistent success across sports. We'll hopefully be able to continue that in the upcoming year.
And Teddy, I just got 2 comments here from the chat box. Want to get your opinion on. I'll comment on it as well. Ashley Wade saying, well, November was certainly good for Vegas, 61.8 million. Yikes. Talking about the win for the sports books. And when I was saying it's the best year for sports bettors, Ashley, I think we're actually agreeing here. I'm talking about the guys doing the work and doing this for a living, kind of like, similar to my life, like devoting your life to it and finding edges and angles, not so much to the guys betting parlays and just kind of throwing it out there, going up against where Vegas makes a lot of their money, so to speak. But Teddy, any comments on, the record win for the Vegas sports books?
Well, 2 things. One is that generally, and not always, but generally, when the house wins, me and my clients do okay. I'm not someone that gets involved with a lot of public sides across sports, and I'm not someone that falls in love with the wise guy plays, where the wise guys are pounding this and pounding this and pounding this, and every week you're dealing with these big line moves, some of which win and some of which don't. So that's certainly one piece of it. When you talk about, however, what happened in November, the NFL, and the quotes from the sports books were real firm about this. What happened in November is that the books won most of their big decisions in the NFL. There were a lot of one-sided games in the NFL, and a lot of those one-sided games, the vast majority of them, the quote from Jay Cornegay over at the Westgate Superbook was 9 out of 10 went in favor of the house. So that's why the hold was as big as it was in November. But the thing that stood out to me, sports betting revenue on the Las Vegas Strip, I think for the whole state, sports betting hold for November was bigger than the blackjack hold for November, the first time that's ever happened. And when you talk to people, younger people in their 20s and 30s, I'm an old guy now, but we're seeing the table games, the roulette, the pie gal, the craps, and of course, blackjack, they're declining in importance when it comes to the overall betting universe, the overall casino universe. And what we're seeing is a casino like the Circa can open up and be catered to sports bettors and be built, instead of around the pit, around the sports book. And I'll tell you, I was downtown on Monday. This casino was dead. That casino was dead. Circa wasn't dead. The table games, the young people are not betting table games. They don't think they're beatable, which obviously, if you do advanced strategy for blackjack and use comps in the play and et cetera, they're somewhat beatable. But sports betting is being viewed as, if you're an advantage player, if you're I don't want to use the word smart, but if you're a smart guy, you're saying sports betting is something I have a chance to beat. That's why the sports betting, hold and handle will continue to rise as table games decline here in Vegas. And I don't think Circa is going to be the last casino to open with the sports book as their centerpiece.
Love getting that information from you, Teddy. Knowing Las Vegas, knowing the sports betting market, really as good as anybody out there. Guys, follow him on Twitter at Teddy_covers. Got another comment just wanted to bring up real quick. Auburn can only be better without Gus. That's from David Bennett in the chat box. Teddy, any quick comments on that? Do you agree with him?
No, they can be worse. If they're flat, they can be worse. So, like I said, 2020 for, is, oh my God, let this year be over. Be careful what you wish for, because we don't know what 2021 is going to bring. Yeah, Malzahn's gone. Yeah, if you're an Auburn fan, if you're an Auburn bettor, Gus Malzahn wasn't your favorite head coach by any stretch of the imagination. But if Kevin Steele doesn't motivate them up, they can come out and look every bit as bad as they did under Malzahn. So I'm not convinced they can only be better without Gus. They may not be better without him this week.
Teddy, I very much disagree with David Bennett. And I think Auburn had a great run with Gus Malzahn. I think the Auburn kind of bandwagon here in wanting him off the head coaching ranks of Auburn was a bad decision by the Auburn higher ups. I think that, when you're recruiting against Nick Saban and really the whole SEC overall, and in the toughest division in that conference, it's a very difficult job, Teddy. Now, he got paid very well. He got paid very well on the way out. I wish they would have kept him, though, David. And I actually think it could get worse. I mean, they were always top 10 in recruiting, bringing in really good recruits. You always had a good defensive line. Now, the offense got stagnant, but overall as a coach, I think he was well respected, and in the betting market's pretty good off of a bye. 9-2 off of a bye. Gonna miss that betting Auburn game. So I kind of disagree with you there, David.
And let me jump in real quick, because speaking as a Michigan man, and this is probably, it's a while back now, but Lloyd Carr was always ripped. Oh, Lloyd Carr, he can't win the big game. He can't do anything. Michigan's, they're not as good as they were under Bo. And for years, ripping Lloyd Carr. And then Lloyd Carr finally got fired. And when you look at Michigan's program since, all they're trying to do is get back to where they were under Lloyd Carr. So, the SEC West is brutal. Be careful what you wish for, Auburn fans.
Oh, absolutely. Great way to put it, especially in an all SEC schedule. I don't know, 6-4, 7-3. That's not that bad of a record, to tell you the truth. It's a couple games away from being in the national championship talk. So I don't know, guys. I think that they pulled the trigger a little bit too quick there on the Plains, but to each his own. Could be wrong in that. Guys, we got the 2 playoff games, and then we'll steam through the Saturday card here, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, with the first semifinal game here. Number 4 versus number 1, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Alabama Crimson Tide. We're seeing Alabama minus 20-point favorites here, Teddy, 65.5 being the total.
And I don't know what to do with this game. A part of me feels tempted to lay it with Alabama. When we see Notre Dame as this big of a dog, the last time Notre Dame was this big of a dog was in 2008 against USC. They were 32.5-point dogs. They lost that game 38-3. Since that time, again, that's 2008. Irish have been a double-digit dog 9 times. They've covered 6 of them, but 2 of the 3 non-covers came against Clemson, 1 in the playoff and 1 in the ACC championship game, where Notre Dame could not and did not compete with a truly elite team. Now, Alabama, that offense is sick. What, they score 50 points a game? They put up 73 touchdowns in an abbreviated season. Mac Jones, I haven't even heard about that. It's funny. I ignore the Heisman, and then I forget. The Heisman hasn't been awarded yet, has it?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, it is the dumbest award in all of sports, so I literally pay no attention to it. But I just realized we've gone through December, and there's no bet against the Heisman winner. That was an angle that was in play oftentimes. Mac Jones, what are you? 76% passes, 3,700 yards, a 32-4 TD to INT ratio. Now he's going against an elite defense. Notre Dame allowed 2 touchdowns in their first 6 games through the air. They've allowed 8 in their last 5, so they've shown some cracks, and obviously the schedule's gotten a little bit tougher for Notre Dame. I don't know that anyone's shutting down Alabama or slowing down Alabama. So the real question here is whether Ian Book and the Irish offense are capable of moving the football against this Crimson Tide defense that has shown some vulnerability against some, explosive offenses this year. The Ole Miss game certainly stands out. Notre Dame, I don't know. The class difference between Alabama and everyone else is certainly priced into this. Okay. Am I looking to lay 3 touchdowns or close to it with it's not like you're looking at Alabama saying, wow, there's great value on the Crimson Tide here after they've killed everyone all year and their offense is setting records. There's not value in Alabama at this number. At the same time, we've seen Notre Dame fail to step up in class more than once, both in this era and in every recent era in South Bend. I'm not an Ian Book fan in terms of him against an elite defense, and I'm not in any rush to bet against Saban in a bowl game, even though, Alabama's only 3-6 against the number in these playoff games. They failed to cover each of their last 3 tries playing against the big boys. Hard game for me. If I had to do anything, I'd probably lean over, but I'm not going to do anything with this game. If the line moved 3 points, I still wouldn't do anything for this game. I shouldn't say that. If the line moved 3 points, I'd probably fade the move. But the line moved another point in either direction. I'm not close to the window. The only thing I would want to do in this one is if we do see a line move on game day, it might be worth fading.
Okay. And Teddy, I agree with you sidewise. I think this is a tough one. I mean, minus 20 point. I actually lean to the Fighting Irish, but I don't love it at all. I could see Sark kind of dialing it up in the second half and them covering this spread. At the same time, I think mobility at the quarterback position for Notre Dame, good offensive line, decently good defense as well. I think that they could, a puncher's chance at hanging in there and giving them a game. Plus the fact, it's controlled atmosphere. What this is the Rose Bowl, but it's being played in AT&T Stadium in Texas, right, Teddy? So controlled climate. I'm with you. I lean over as well. So good stuff there on the first semifinal game. We got the second semifinal game, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific here. Number 3 versus number 2, Ohio State versus Clemson on ESPN. Looks like 66.5 being the total here, Teddy. Clemson, little bit more competitively priced, but still a heavy favorite, minus 7.5 against Ohio State.
Yeah, this game I'm in play on as well. Again, you can get this right now over at Wager Talk or sportsmember.com. Don't buy an individual play. At least buy a 3-pack. If you can if you want to. But I mean, get on board, do a weekend package. You'll get everything in the NFL and college football, and you're not going to pay that much more than you would just for one play. So it's in my mind, it's a no-brainer if that's the way you want to go. So I'm in play on this. I'm going to give you a case for both sides. All right. Ohio State is now in their 24th game under Ryan Day. They've been underdogs twice, both times against Clemson. And last year's game where Ohio State got out to a big lead and then Clemson roared back, didn't cover the number, but closed out the game. I think it was on a 29-7 run after the Buckeyes led 16-0 early. Clemson certainly took control of that game, but the Buckeyes defense was good enough to give Trevor Lawrence and company a whole lot of problems in that contest. Now, this year, we've seen some vulnerability from the Ohio State defense. We've seen it on multiple occasions. And we've got Ohio State coming in, in the secondary we saw it. Certainly the Indiana game stands out to me. But it's not the only one. And we've also seen some issues when it comes to Justin Fields and his ability against elite defenses. That said, it's an Ohio State team. If you ask me who's got something to prove out of the 4 teams here, it's not Notre Dame, it's Ohio State. And it's an Ohio State team that has also shown the ability under Ryan Day and elsewise to hang tough even against the toughest opponents. Now, look, Clemson is absolutely elite, all right? But they've been an overvalued commodity for extended stretches this season. They've not been money winners for their backers. And while Ohio State failed to cover in the Big Ten title game, never sniffed to cover, Clemson, obviously, the last time bettors saw them, they were blowing out Notre Dame. So from a line value standpoint, there may well be a little bit of line value here on the Ohio State Buckeyes. The number one piece of advice I can give about this game right now, this has to do with betting skills, nothing to do with handicapping skills. Okay. From a betting skills standpoint, recognize right now, widely available, you can take plus 7.5 with Ohio State. You can lay -7 with Clemson. Looking at the Wager Talk live odds screen right now, it is legitimately a mix. All right. There are 7s out there all over the place here in Vegas and offshore and in Jersey. There are 7.5s out there all over the place here in Vegas and in Jersey and Pennsylvania and offshore. So if you like Ohio State, you have to take them plus 7.5. If you like Clemson, you have to take them -7. And if you don't have that option, it's real simple. Open a new account. Get another sports book because both numbers are available. And as a bettor, that's one of the biggest advantages you have when the market is split 7.5. Take plus 7.5 with the dog, lay -7 with the favorite every time. That's a legitimate edge that you'll have in this game that isn't always present, regardless of which side you like.
Teddy covers the intelligence he's preaching out there, guys. Good stuff from a betting 101 standpoint. We got City by the Bay. Shout out to you, man. Thanks for watching on Periscope. Brett Allison in here, Lotus Scalper, all you guys. Welcome in Sebastian Cornwell. Thank you for joining us. Just broke down the 2 playoff games. Now we got Saturday, January 2nd games, guys. We're breaking down here full day of action in college football. Talking SEC, ACC up first, top of the card on Saturday, January 2nd, Teddy. 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, 491, 492, the rotation number. Kentucky at North Carolina State, 50 being the total, -2.5. That's the Kentucky Wildcats in this bowl game.
Yeah, from a side standpoint, from a total standpoint, I wasn't even close to being involved in this contest. But I do think there is correlation. If you like the Kentucky side, you like the under. Okay, Kentucky, they're all about the defense, and it's been that way. And in theory, they're supposed to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage defensively against an NC State offensive line that has some hiccups. I'm not a huge fan of the Wolfpack quarterback, Bailey Hockman. Only 12 to 8 TD to INT ratio, 21 sacks this time. 21 sacks as just a part-time starter. And I'm not convinced that, Kentucky's not trading points. Okay. Stoops' teams, and Stoops has been able to go. This offense is not unique to this season for Kentucky. They've been offensively weak in every recent season. And Stoops has still been able to go into bowls and grind out tight, low-scoring wins. That's kind of been his MO. If Kentucky's able to dominate the defensive line of scrimmage, like I think they may well be able to do, they're certainly live to cover the number, and I expect the game to go under the total. But if it's a Wolfpack game, and I think Kentucky correlates stronger with the under than the Wolfpack do to the over, because I don't know that Kentucky's going to score either way. But, it's an NC State team. They want to throw the football around. That's been their basic MO throughout. And the offense at times has shown the ability to really put up points in bunches. This is a team that's surprised a lot of folks this season winning 8 games. They've been undervalued for pretty well extended stretches this season. But yeah, sidewise, I don't know, Drew. I do know that at least here, Kentucky correlates with under if you want to maximize your potential ROI, and you like the Wildcats in this one.
Yeah, good read there on the Kentucky program, Teddy. And we got Brett in the chat box saying 2.5 used to be their season over/under win total for Kentucky. Now they're being favored. And he's talking about years past, Teddy. I agree with him. I mean, it's crazy what now Mark Stoops, with Gus Malzahn being fired, is the second most tenured coach in the SEC behind Nick Saban. And that's saying something in the SEC, because you have a down year, down 2, you're gone. So it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do there in Lexington. Recruiting wise, they're getting up there, and you can tell their defense, the talent on the rosters there, and they don't even really have a good quarterback that can throw the ball down the field. If they did have that, Terry Wilson's okay, a pretty good athlete, but in terms of passing game, he's kind of lacking, at least in my opinion. But I think Kentucky's the side here, Teddy. Competitively priced game. I would be on the Wildcats or pass.
Well, I mean, see the difference. All right, why Stoops has lasted in Lexington is because Kentucky football accepts mediocrity. If Kentucky can win 7-8 games and make a bowl game most years, the head coach can stick around, and that's the state of the program right now. At Auburn, if you do that, you get fired. At Kentucky, if you do that, you get an extension.
Sure. I do agree with that. And I think I need to add on an important caveat here, at least in my opinion. The big difference is another big difference being Auburn's on the west side. Yep. Kentucky's on the east side. If you're looking to rack up some wins, it's a little bit easier on one side than the other, especially in the SEC. But that's the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, one of my favorite named bowl games. I would say it's probably second behind the Cheez-It Bowl, in my opinion. Next up, the Outback. Do you have any favorite bowl game names here, Teddy?
The Weed Whacker Bowl was the one that I used to really like, but I don't even know if it exists anymore, if it's been canceled. But I always thought that was, of all the dumb names for bowl games, that was maybe on the top of the list.
Yeah, that one was good. We got the Outback Bowl up next. A good name bowl, but kind of been around for a while, I guess you could say. Ole Miss versus Indiana, SEC Big Ten again here, Teddy. 65 being the total. We got the Indiana Hoosiers -8.5 here. Outback Bowl, of course, being in Tampa, Raymond James Stadium, Teddy.
Yeah, and again, this is another game where right now If you like the favorite, you can lay 8. If you like the dog, you can take 9, and it's widely available. Now, it's not around the key number of 7 versus 7.5, but these points make all the difference. If it turns one loss out of 100 into a push and one push out of 100 into a win, you'd be shocked at what that does to your bottom line over the course of 1,000 or 2,000 plays. Oh, yeah. That's all you got to do is turn one loss into a push and one push into a win. And if you conscientiously line chop out of 100 plays, you can usually do that with 2. 2 losses into pushes, 2 pushes into wins. Makes a big difference in your bottom line. This is the game right now where there is line variance. I'm in play here. All right, so I'll give you a case for the 2 sides. The case for Ole Miss is, what the hell's Indiana doing laying 8 in this game? Okay. It's not like the Rebels. Lane Kiffin's offense is going to move the football against anybody. And even though they've had their fair share of COVID issues and their defense is spotty, they're big dogs. And then we talked earlier in the show about how well the SEC has done against the Big Ten in these bowls, how poorly the Big Ten has done as favorites in these bowls against SEC teams. I think it's perfectly reasonable to make a case that, this line is just too high for Indiana against Ole Miss, especially if you're getting an Indiana team that, you see one or two things happen in these bowl games. Indiana got snubbed in every way they could get snubbed. All right. They got snubbed out of a chance to play in a New Year's Six bowl game. And they got snubbed out of the bowl game that Northwestern's playing in that normally would go to the number 2 team in the Big Ten. This is a one-loss Hoosiers team. And the one loss came by a touchdown in Columbus. Sometimes those teams come out flat. Sometimes those teams come out motivated. I've got a pretty strong opinion on which way the Indiana's going to come out. So, but if you're just grading out the personnel here, all right, there's no way that Indiana can be laying this price. If Indiana shows, and remember, Ole Miss has had a lot of COVID issues, and they do have opt-out issues. They've lost their top 2 receivers, both of them will be playing on Sundays next year. And Kiffin hasn't even said everyone that's going to be out in terms of COVID. He's been teasing us, saying, yeah, we've got issues without naming players. But, if you're grading out the pure personnel, you're not going to get to Indiana laying more than a touchdown in this game. If you're grading out the circumstances with Ole Miss potentially being really shorthanded and Indiana, if they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder and something to prove, then this line is probably warranted.
Teddy, great breakdown. I agree with you. I mean, talking about just teams being shorthanded, especially in 2020. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can just tell you from my own handicapping, the teams that are missing, 10 plus players, what UCF comes to mind, Houston comes to mind, even North Texas. Those teams have been blown out in bowl season. If this is one with Ole Miss, do you think that it could almost be not bet it blind, but just kind of bet against the team that has a bunch of players out for the bowl game?
I don't think you want to bet that blind because it's not, sometimes you get a clear sense that these guys are opting out. Nobody's really into this bowl game. The team's going to be flat. Okay. Mm-hmm. Other times you get a sense, hey, these guys are going off to the NFL. Bye. See you later. We're coming to play a bowl game. And never forget, especially with the deeper programs, when some guys opt out, the next guy who's coming in is every bit as good as the guy who just opted out. Might not have the experience, but that guy too can be playing in the NFL, 3 years from now or 2 years from now or whatever. So the quality of the backups does matter.
Oh, and it matters a lot. And that's where research comes in. So, guys, pay attention to that. We got 2 games left here. Talking with Teddy Covers, Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com. In the NFL since November 1st, 67%. Since December 1st in college football, 71%. So both the NFL and college football really killing it, guys. Is 5% in the NFL, 70%. That's for the whole season. My favorite stat with Teddy Covers in the NFL since week 1 of 2015, guys. So multi-years there. 220 and 168. That's 57% in the NFL. One of the best marks out there in the industry. He's got his New Year's wake up and win play up. Teddy's bowl trifecta. You can get them both at Sports Memo or wagertalk.com. A free play up in the NBA as well. So check them out at both websites. Also on Twitter at Teddy_covers. Next game up here, Teddy, we got Oregon and Iowa State. We're seeing the Cyclones -4, 58 being the total. Of course, January 2nd, this is not a playoff game, Teddy. It's actually the Fiesta Bowl, though, the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Teddy, what are you thinking here?
So I do not have a strong opinion on this side at all. I mean, I can make a legit case for Oregon. I can make a legit case, I think, for Iowa State. I think the better. Well, I'll talk about the total in just a minute, because if I'm going to get in this game, I'll be involved in the total. I'll look at the under rather than the side. I mean, it's a Cyclones team that is good, not great. All right, they really aren't. And when you say, why didn't they win the Big 12 title? How did they come up short? Again, they rallied back against Oklahoma. They certainly made that a game after falling behind early. But they've had similar issues for much of the season. They've had turnover problems. They've had special teams issues. And I don't love that receiving core for the Cyclones. I do think Oregon overall is the more talented of these two teams if you're going to grade out the personnel on both sides of the football. I don't like Oregon's quarterback. Tyler Shaw was I know they won the Big 12 title game, but he's not a QB that I trust. He doesn't look like a QB that the Ducks trust necessarily a whole lot. And I think you have a big edge at the quarterback position on the Iowa State side in this contest that is worthy of a 4-point edge. If Oregon doesn't trust their QB, it might be a long game. But I like these two defenses. The Cyclones defense has been really good all year. And Iowa State bowl games under Matt Campbell, consistent unders. They've gone going under each of the last 3 years by an average of more than 2 touchdowns per game. If I can go back further, 9 of Iowa State's last 10 bowls have gone under the total. And Oregon, while we think of the high-flying, high-octane Ducks offenses of years and decades past, this isn't that. They're a pretty good defensive team with some issues on the offensive side of the football. This total's sitting at 58. To me, that seems a good notch or two too high. If I'm going to get involved in this one, I'll expect a relatively low-scoring affair.
And Teddy, talking about Iowa State, we got a question from City by the Bay on Twitter. Do you think Brock Purdy has an NFL potential at this point?
Not as a starter, no. I mean, Purdy could be a practice squad QB, could be a third stringer, maybe he could be a backup. But I don't look at Brock Purdy as an NFL starting quarterback.
Okay, and Teddy, we got one game left, but some guys in the chat box just asking a quick question here. Oklahoma and Florida. I didn't realize this, Teddy, just doing these shows, but the line is now up as high as 8 for Oklahoma. That's pretty crazy. I mean, this line move. Obviously, talking about opt-outs for Florida at this point. Do you have any quick thoughts on tonight's Sugar Bowl for the guys watching live?
So let's put it this way: I had a chance to take Oklahoma +3, and I talked myself out of it. So the last thing we're going to do now is take Oklahoma -8 when they were flat. And it was one of those where it reminded me of the Warriors and the Nets opening night NBA. It was like, boy, I should put that out now, +5.5, +5.5. And I'm like, there's just something that and then, of course, what happened in that game is Draymond Green sits and then it moves to 7.5. And then next thing you know, the Nets killed them. And there was 4 or 5 days where I'm like, I should put that up this morning. I should put that up this morning. I should put that up this morning. And I didn't. There was something holding me back. And this felt the same way. Boy, I should really get that Sooners up a +3. I should make that bet and get it in. And something was holding me back, and now that it's -8, if something was holding me back with a +3, I'm sure as hell not going to lay the -8 with Oklahoma. I wouldn't be shocked if they kill them, and I wouldn't be shocked if they lose outright.
Well, Teddy, I mean, talking about, guys stepping up, you kind of said it yourself with guys opting out, the guys behind them. I mean, a talent-rich state in Florida. arguably the best kind of recruiting grounds, talking about the University of Florida in the state of Florida. What about the no-name guys stepping up and not that big of a drop-off? What about the Florida Gators plus more than a touchdown here?
Like I said, I'm not playing the game.
Okay.
I'm interested in Mullen catching points. Heck yeah. But it's not a situation where there's a reason that this line's moved, and it's not based on opinion. This is based on this guy. Florida's missing every. One guy after the next, after the next, after the next. Their whole receiving corps is out for tonight. Copeland and Tony and Grimes and Pitts, obviously, and you have a Heisman contending QB. And I always laugh at the guys, the quarterbacks that stick around for their senior year when the offensive line graduates and the receivers graduate, and they come back and their draft stock drops instead of rises. Trask might be wishing he had opted out of this game too, given the fact that none of his receivers will be playing with him.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Although if he does light it up, it could help him at the next level. I think he actually projects well. But the thing that worries me is he's not the type of quarterback in college that can really take over the game with his legs as well. So I don't know. It's kind of a tough handicap. Got to do a little bit more research on that one. Guys, we got one game left. I also think I said that was the talking about the last game, or talking about Florida, Oklahoma being it's the Cotton Bowl, not the Sugar Bowl. So sorry about that, guys. We got the Capital One Orange Bowl to end it here, though, Teddy. Texas A&M and North Carolina. Of course, we're talking Saturday, January 2nd, the nightcap here, the last bowl game on the schedule besides the national championship game. 497, 498 here. UNC at Texas A&M, 65.5 being the total, Teddy. We see the Aggies -7 or -7.5 point favorites.
Yeah, and Rob Vino and myself did and Minty Betts did a thorough video game breakdown video for the Orange Bowl with A&M and North Carolina. We did that yesterday. So if you want more analysis on that game, again, check out the Wager Talking the Sports Memo YouTube page, and you can find that detailed analysis. What I basically said, so you don't have to go find that video, is that if I'm playing, I'm laying. You look at these two offenses, and Kellen Mond for 3 years was pretty mediocre. M is for mediocre. He's been pretty good this year. All right. But I don't know that I trust him anywhere near what the way that we like Howell at North Carolina. But from a defensive standpoint, this night and day between these two teams. Texas A&M's defense on the road went out and hit people and shut teams down, and an elite level defense. And when it comes to a bowl game, I know Mac Brown's had some success in bowls, when he had Vince Young and when it comes to bowl games, Jimbo Fisher's such an anal guy. I want that for a bowl game. I want the coach who has every last thing checked off and ticked off, and that his team's going to be prepared. Florida State is going to be prepared. Not Florida State. Texas A&M is going to be prepared for this bowl game in a way that Florida State often wasn't, because everyone was opting out. And for A&M, we haven't seen the opt-out. They're really excited about this opportunity. Mac Brown's teams tend to be a little bit more undisciplined. The bowl success, there are years they had it, when the offense explodes. And this offense is capable of exploding. The last time we saw them, they blew up against Miami, and they put up points in bunches and touchdowns and big plays, and the game was over early. And the Tar Heels are capable of that. But from a defensive standpoint, North Carolina is nowhere near A&M, not on any of the three units. And they've got a handful of guys opting out on the defense side of the football. That's, in my mind, Chaz Surratt matters for a Tar Heels team that isn't elite on the defensive side of the football. I like the Aggies to cover the spot. That's the only way I could look. But again, this is one of those games where right now you can lay -7 with Texas A&M. You can take +7.5 with North Carolina. If you're going to be a winning sports bettor, you cannot lay 7.5 with A&M. You have to find a 7. They're out there. There are plenty of them out there. If you want North Carolina and you're a winning sports bettor, you can't take +7. You have to find a 7.5. These are the little edges that winning bettors put in their pocket over the long term, it will make a difference. I encourage you. Doesn't matter which side you like. Get the best of the number.
Teddy covers on Twitter at Teddy_covers 67% in the NFL since November 1st, 71% in college football since December 1st. Check him out. Sports Memo, wagertalk.com. Plays up and available for discounted prices, plus free play in the NBA as well. So, Teddy, anything else you want to throw out there before we shut this down?
I want to say Happy New Year, guys. Be safe, stay sane, and we'll talk to you again in 2021.
See you in 2021, boys and girls. Thanks for joining us live in the chat box. Best of luck with your bets. Please smash the like button on your way out. Feel free to drop a comment if you're watching on replay. Have a fun, safe weekend. Enjoy the New Year's Eve festivities.